Hello everyone, welcome to a new video of the indicator store of the series Do It Yourself. And today we are going to learn something very useful, the crossover between two things that are not indicators, but part of the candles. As we know, all the candles has four values: the high, low, the open, and the close. Let's check with more detail. On a red candle, we have the open, the close, and this is the low. On a green bar, the open is at the bottom and the close is at the top. If you don't want to have the lines attached, fixed to a part of the bar, in my opinion, it is more useful if you right click, go to drawing tools, and remove the snap mode to disable, so we can place all the drawings wherever we want to place the drawing. Without the need of having the auto adjust. This is the low, the high, the open, and the close, because this is an up bar. If we keep looking at the opens and the closes, we can draw a line between all the opens and all the closes. For example, this is the open, another open, and here the open is at the bottom. And now if we draw lines between the closes, but let's use a different color. This is a close, another close. Let's use, for example, red. And now we keep joining all the closes. Now the next close is at the top of the bar. So we have this, and we can see that there is a crossover. When the closes cross the opens, we have what I call the open-close signal. We have a custom indicator for that, and there are several ways to detect this setup. For example, if you don't have any custom indicator, you can use, for example, the SMA of period 1 to join all the opens and all the closes in this way. We all know that the SMA of only one bar of period is just joining all the values. For example, if we select here the closes, then it is joining all the closes as this. Here we can see all the closes. And we can do another one. We can copy and paste and do exactly the same for the opens. And also let's change the color. Let's use, for example, blue. Where is the blue? Here. And here I need to select something different, for example, the open. And now we get the same that we had before. So it is automatically drawing a line between all the closes and all the opens. So now we can visually detect where are the crossovers. And what we have here on the crossovers are the open-close signals of a minute bar. As we know, on a minute bar, this signal is really noisy because we have crossovers everywhere. But one of the ways to filter is using the HeikenAshi, because the HeikenAshi smooths the color of the bars. Now, how can we do the same? We can apply a custom indicator, the HeikenAshi indicator, this one, so we can see the candles, not to convert the candles. So here we can see the bars, but as we can see, all the calculations are still using the real open and close. But this is very simple. We can just change, we can calculate the simple moving average. Here, instead of the close, we can select an indicator. For example, here I want the indicator HeikenAshi and the plot close. And we get this. Now it is showing in all the closes of the HeikenAshi bars. Now we do the same for the opens. Instead of the real open, I want the indicator open. The HeikenAshi and the plot is the open. Here and here. And now we can see the two lines over the opens and the closes. And the crossovers are, of course, smoothed. Only two crosses, one here and another here. And all the noise in between is gone. We can alter the order of the lines. You can click and select and then press shift and move the wheel of the middle button. So you can select to show in front or in back one line or another. Now the problem is how can we detect the signals? Here we are using a custom indicator because here we can see if we press the middle button, we can see the real open closes and the HeikenAshi open closes. This is important because if we create a strategy, the strategy is going to use the real values to calculate the fields, not the fake values. That will happen if we use the HeikenAshi bars included with NinjaTrader, where the open and closes are fake. Now, how can we do to detect those crossovers? Let's review that on markers and on builder. On markers, we only need to copy the closes and the opens. So we add a markers copy. And the same as we did previously, I don't want to copy the close or the open. I want to copy the indicator HeikenAshi open and close. So HeikenAshi. This indicator is included on NinjaTrader 7, but not on 8. But on the description of this video, you will find a place where you can get my version of the HeikenAshi. Let's choose a blue color with a line format. I am not sure if it looks nice. And the same for the open. So we can copy and paste and just replace the names. My line one is, no, I forgot to add a name. So let's name this HC and HO for HeikenAshi close and HeikenAshi open. So here, HC, HeikenAshi close, and the other HO, HeikenAshi open. And also I want to change the color. And also we need to change the plot on the copied line because this is the HeikenAshi, but different plot. Now it is the open. So I have the two lines. And now, this is very simple. We can use the markers crossover and detect the crosses between the two lines. On markers crossovers, the inputs are two lines. So line number 1 is HC. The second line is HO. And then this is the result, the name of the histogram. We are not going to use this histogram, so you can place anything here. And for the threshold, I suggest starting by 0 always. When you add a crossover, always start with 0. And then looking at the histogram, we can decide which is the best value to use. I prefer to use as a signal the background instead of arrows. In my opinion, it is more visible. And now looking at the histogram, as we can see, the histogram is the distance between the two lines. When there is a change or a cross by 0, we have a trend change. When the blue line is below the red line, like here, the histogram is negative. And the bigger the value, the bigger the distance between the blue and the red line. So for example, here we have a short signal, this is almost invisible, but we have a red bar here. And this is creating a signal, a short signal. But if we look at the size of the histogram, it is negative, but we can define a threshold that here we are in positive. If we don't reach a negative of 0.5, then we don't change the trend. Let's see some examples. Let's say here we have a lot of noise signals. What happens if we use a threshold of 0.5? The threshold is on crossover, and the parameter is this one. If I use 0.5, let's take a look at the signals. Some of the signals are gone and others are displaced to the right, like here, for example. Until I don't get a negative 0.5, I don't get a signal. So here, for example, I don't have a short signal. If I use a bigger number, this is the reason because I always suggest starting by 0, because if I place a number too big, then I never get a signal because the threshold is never big enough to break that threshold. Maybe here at the beginning, because it is lower than 5. But if I use even a bigger number, for example, 500, then I am never going to have a signal. So I suggest always start using a histogram, a threshold of 0, and then looking at the histogram, you will have an idea which is the best threshold to use. For example, something in the area, in the range of 0, 1. This is using 1. And it is smoother than previous. This short, for example, is something, maybe a loser. Take a look at this long. It looks like very late because we are waiting to have a distance of 1 point until we get a long signal. So we have the two options, or we get fast signals, noisy, or cleaner signals, but with a delay. Let's go to Builder and see how can we recreate this or replicate this. So we select new strategy and let's replicate the open close with HeikenAshi filtering. With open close, HeikenAshi, we are working at bar close. And for the input parameters, we can specify target and stop. But now we have a new input parameter, the threshold. The threshold is going to define if I have a quick and noisy signal or with a more delay and smoother signal. And the threshold can be in ticks or in points. Here I use 1.5, or I can decide if using 4 ticks, 6 ticks. For this example, let's use a decimal number. So we talk about points, not ticks. By default, 0, no threshold. And now let's go to the signals. On the logic, what we need is to say that one line crosses the other. Very, very simple. But here the line is not the open and the close. The classic open close will be something like this. Price, close, cross, above, price, open. This is the classic open close. But here I want to use the HeikenAshi version of the open and the close. So on the left, I need to select HeikenAshi, close, cross above, HeikenAshi, here, HeikenAshi, close, the other line. But where is the threshold? When we have a crossover, let's paint a signal. Let's paint the background in a certain color. And for the other direction, we can just duplicate and invert. So change the color. And here, instead of cross above, is cross below. By the way, there is an error here that I am releasing now doing the translation. I placed HeikenAshi open on the left and HeikenAshi close on the right. It is on the other side. It is HeikenAshi close, cross above or below, HeikenAshi open. Anyway, I am going to fix this later, I think. But I need to add the threshold because the blue line is crossing. This is HeikenAshi close, as I mentioned before. So HeikenAshi close, cross above the HeikenAshi open plus a threshold. The problem is the offset is not available when we select cross above. We already saw this on a previous video, but there's a way to solve this. Instead of using cross, we can use greater. It is more or less the same, but not exactly the same. Now we are going to check what happens. Let's say that the HeikenAshi close is greater than the HeikenAshi open plus threshold. And for the shorts, the HeikenAshi close is less here. The HeikenAshi close is less than the HeikenAshi open minus the threshold, because now the threshold here, the threshold is negative. So here I need to select minus threshold. Now let's see what happens. Let's compile, because this is not exactly what we are looking for, because we are not using cross, we are not detecting crossovers. We are just stating that one line is over the other, and we need to detect the first time this is true. Anyway, let's compile and see what happens. And now we need to apply the strategy to the chart so we can see which are the differences. And to compare this, here we are using a threshold of 1. So just for starting, let's use a threshold of 0, no threshold. So the strategy is with open close HeikenAshi. And just for testing this, let's use a threshold of 0 so we can see the whole differences. As we can see, it is painting always. And this signal is not present because we are detecting the crosses by 0, no 0 plus the threshold. When the histogram is negative, here we start painting in orange. When it is positive, start painting in blue. Negative, orange. And then positive in blue. So we are not waiting for the threshold. Now, what happens if we use the same threshold? Here I am using a threshold of, I guess it was 1. Yes, 1. So let's use the same threshold on the strategy. 1, enable, and let's see what we get. The strategy is painting the background when the distance between one line and the other is greater than the threshold. It is not painting the first time it is true. Here it is okay, it is short, but at the following bar it is also greater than the threshold. But I am only interested in the first time. So how can we adapt this result to the real result that we want? We already saw this on a previous video. We need to detect the first time the condition is true. The first time it is greater, and this is the first time it is below. Here we are not reaching the positive threshold, but then we are crossing below the negative threshold again, and I am not interested in this short signal. So what can I do is, for example, storing in a variable the last detected signal. So if I had a short, I don't want another short. So we can go back and define a variable, for example, last signal, and use 3 possible values: 0 for no signal detected, 1 for longs, -1 for shorts. So when I paint in blue, I assign the value of +1. So set last signal equal to 1. When I paint in orange, -1. So set last signal equal to -1. So it is always +1 or -1. Now here it is -1, and then, and the next time I have a signal, I don't want the signal because my last signal was already -1. So when the distance is below the threshold, I also want to check that last signal is not equal to -1. So add the user variable last signal not equal to -1. So I don't repeat -1. And for the longs, I don't want that last signal is equal to 1. Last signal not equal miscellaneous numeric value 1. Okay. Let's compile and see the differences. So go to strategies and refresh. Disable, enable. And now we can see that we have a match between the marker signals and the builder signals. Now automate this is really simple. Where I paint an orange background, just enter short. Where I paint in blue, enter long, add target and stops. We can do a lot more to improve this. We can filter by the slope of a slower line. I also suggest smoothing those lines. So instead of looking at this noisy close line, we can smooth that line. We already saw this on one of the training sessions. I remember that we are having weekly training sessions where we review this kind of setups, and we also optimize the parameters. For more info, you can contact me on the chat room that we have on Discord. The access is free and the instructions are on the description of this video. Thank you everyone. Bye bye.